Today we look behind one of the most secretive businesses, art management. And I'm joined by Birgit Gudat of Kendris Art Management. Miss Gudat, tell me, what is it, what you do exactly?
Okay, art management is actually the art of managing art collections in every aspect. And there are many. So, for instance, there is a legal side to it. Our legal team and tax team would negotiate, draft, and check on various contracts and agreements, be it a sales agreement, a purchase, consignment, escrow, loan. So practically from a simple storage agreement up to very complex situations when it comes to setting up of trust and foundations, they have everything on their table. And there's more the art side on it, very classic tasks in the collections management. So we would, for instance, check on the due diligence by checking on documents and doing provenance research and that kind of thing. And when the artwork is in the collection, then we take care, of the insurance, of the inventory, or we process loan requests with museums and galleries, for instance. And last but not least, we are also taking care of the shipments, the logistics, taking care of creating and packing and storing the artworks all over the world.
Okay. So, and who are your clients? Are those private people, institutions?
It goes without saying that we are not able to disclose any names because, as you know, confidentiality is a priority in our business and our clients rely on us. So, but what we can say is that we manage from Swiss art foundations up to very renowned international collections of museum quality. There's also an exception to it. What we see here are artworks from the Erlenmeyer Foundation. This is a Swiss art foundation established in the early 80s. And their mission was to protect endangered species and animal rights. So the collection is pure investment, and with the profit, they will fulfill the mission of the foundation. And what we can see here are artworks being held in the storage, unfortunately, but we can here present some of these works. Here in front of the pedestal is a work by Ai Weiwei. The Erlenmeyer Foundation has a remarkable group of works by Ai Weiwei.
A good investment.
That's true, very true. And here we are framed by two works by Shan Fan, also a Chinese artist who lives, however, in Hamburg. And here in the middle we have a work by Wang Xingwei, who had just a remarkable, important show in Beijing just last summer.
Okay, and what do you do exactly, let's say, for this specific client, if their art is mostly in storage?
We take care of the purchases and do due diligence on the purchases, as in other cases, taking care of the shipments, we send out our preferred shipper to get the works to the storage, send out trucks and take care of the crate and the shipping.
What pops into my mind are those Freeport storages that there are in certain airport areas where people can have their art pieces VTA free. Stored there, and I was thinking it's quite a thing that so many art pieces are hidden away of the world. You as an art expert, your heart must be bleeding.
Very true. It is, in fact, but it's a good solution to have when your house lacks of space and or you have to, store an artwork for a period of time. It's a very good solution. And, Freeport is a status of customs. It's not a location. That's very important to know.
How does that work for someone who doesn't know that? Let's say a buyer from the US buying an art piece in Switzerland, and then how does that work with the VAT?
So Freeport is VAT exempt, of course. This is a customs situation where you don't have to pay VAT, of course. And yes, I mean, if we can sell and buy within this custom status in the Freeport, and that's a classic method to do.
You mentioned that there is a cycle of an art piece, and I was wondering where in this cycle do you or Kendris Art Management provide its services? Can you walk us through that cycle a little bit?
Yes. Usually the life of an artwork within the collections management starts when it appears in a gallery, an artist studio, or an art fair. And usually our clients go there, choose the art, and then drop their business card saying that Kendris is doing the rest. And then we step in by, organizing the agreement, do the whole due diligence process, check on the condition, for instance. And once the title has passed to the collection, then it has a life within the collection. And there are other tasks we do. For instance, we document the artwork. That's very important, not only with regards to the insurance, but also to document and track the future transactions. And there are other tasks, like we process, for instance, loan requests, we lend out to museums or galleries, and there are other tasks like experts coming in, checking the condition or doing a restoration. And I think the end of the cycle then is when there is the succession planning. So our lawyers will then draft a handmade solution to hand over these artworks to the next generation.
Sometimes maybe a big collector might not think about the succession plan. Are there any anecdotes that you can tell, any stories of things, that you heard where art management would have been needed?
Well, I can't tell you anecdotes, but I can tell you what it's important to know about that. First of all, you need to check on the ownership status when you think of succession planning. Is the artwork held by an individual, or is it held by a trustee of a trust or by a foundation? And it's very wise then, and we would strongly recommend you doing a last will or an inheritance agreement. It's important to know from the collector if he wishes to gift the artwork within his lifetime or upon his death, for instance. And the same is when the artwork is held by a foundation, a trustee of a trust, or a company, for instance. You need to check on the documents of these entities what it says about what will happen with the artwork in the future. Is it planned, to be lent to a museum or to a beneficiary, for instance, or shall it be transferred to another entity, to a company? And I think then two things are quite important to be aware of. First of all, you need to check the adverse tax consequences for the recipient. In a corporate field, for instance, this could trigger tax consequences, corporate gain tax, for instance, or VAT, or income tax, for instance. And the other thing is you need to be aware of infringements of the heirship rights. These are rights that are quite common in Europe, except UK, for instance, but you make sure that there are no violations of these rights. And most important even is the timing. Make sure that you address and consider all these issues way before the death of the collector, especially when there are cross-border transactions and various jurisdictions are involved.
Let's say I would inherit a Picasso painting and I have to pay so much taxes that basically I don't have the money to pay it. Do I have to sell the piece then?
Unfortunately, actually this happened a couple of years ago with a Giacometti painting. A lady inherited a Giacometti painting and hung it actually in the kitchen. So, and then the tax authorities came and said, well, this is not your decoration. This is an art piece and it is not in your tax written down. So, and unfortunately, this lady had to pay a lot of taxes because she didn't know. When you have a simple household and then have a Giacometti inherited, then you have a problem and you might check with your tax advisor.
Another thing that there's a lot of discussion about is blockchain, and I was just thinking about, you were talking about the documentation of art pieces, also the provenance, and now there's a lot of talks about blockchain disrupting the art world. What is your take on the use of blockchain, let's say, to store data?
It has been introduced to broaden the market's transparency, track ownership and provenance for sure. But it will be interesting to see if this will be successful in the long term, because from my point of view, there are many players that live exclusively on information on ownership in the market structures. But we also see a shift in the past 20 years, or even since the 60s, that collecting art is not only a private passion, but also an investment. For instance, art funds allow individuals to invest in aesthetic assets, intangible assets, without being billionaires, These art funds have been quite popular around 2000, but then unfortunately in the financial crisis of 2008 disappeared or had to close down because of lack of liquidity and investors. And now with the new blockchain technology, there are new possibilities and ways to invest in co-ownership. I think just last July there was a blockchain platform who offered fractional stakes in acquiring an artwork from Andy Warhol in bitcoins. Yes. And other cryptocurrencies. So I think it's not fast growing, but it will take some time. But the technology is here, and I'm sure it will be used.
And you just mentioned this Andy Warhol piece that one could own, let's say, part of it if I cannot afford the whole piece. But then I wonder, as a collector, I might want full ownership. I don't want to share it with anyone. So this part of partial ownership is pure investment, right? It's like a share.
Yeah, I think there are two worlds to it, actually. There's a collector who just is in need of, purchasing a piece because he loves it. He loves it for the collection. And there's another world of investment, of investors. And I'm quite sure if this is not working out, they will, of course, go away and do something else or find out another way of co-ownership. Investors are acting differently than collectors.
When we talk about art, for many people, they just think about, high expensive prices and rich collectors. How do you look at it?
Well, the market is still very lively, and we see a lot of high valuable artworks going in auctions and through galleries and so on. It's very true. But there's also another market. I mean, everybody of us is maybe interested in decorating its house. So there is a wide range of values for art. And of course, there is a peak in the art world that buys these very high valuable artworks that we see going through auctions. And it's fair enough. And we don't see a decrease in there, but there is a lot of range in the art world. I mean, artists just start their careers, and artworks are not so expensive to acquire. And of course, we have these, as we call it, assets more that are very valuable and are very expensive to buy. But I think the art world offers, for every portfolio, they offer something.
Is art management a growing business field then?
For sure, it's not a fast-growing business because you see, it needs a lot of trust between the collector and the art manager. And we at Kendris are very proud that we have very long-standing relationships with our business partners and clients. However, there are many players in the art world that want a piece of the cake. So to create lasting bonds, they also offer maybe shipping or appraisal services, be it a gallery or an auction house or an art advisor.
So you say you act independently. What does that mean?
Independently, because we are not bound by others, like the art market, for instance. I mean, an auction house would maybe advise differently.
Well, Ms. Gudat, thank you so much for shedding some light into the art management, and all the best.
Thank you very much.